Hey, Mr. Dorsey, how are you? Oh, here's someone else. Great. Jim, good morning. I am thrilled to have so many APS folks on this call and appreciate their time. And I've got two community folks, so I'm going to give it a minute. I'm so thankful for you all who are here, but I want to make sure I give folks time to join. And we might adjust depending upon how many people show up. I mean, it finally feels like fall Friday. Hello, Ken. Hello, Mahogany. Good morning. Ken, we have a packed house of awesome APS staff and support. The community is tuning in, but they've got other things going on today too.
It means that you're well connected to the community.
Thanks, Kenneth. Hi, Melissa. That's what I'm hoping. I have been going to lots of meetings, and I got another call at 4 today. I appreciate you being here, and I know you have something for work. Um, Well, yeah, let's see. I mean, I'll just go ahead and start running through some things because I know everyone's time is extremely precious. Hello, Mr. Johnson. And I want to make sure I respect APS employees and staff's time. Um, I think y'all all know Katie Howard, District 1 board rep, and I love having these virtual opportunities to engage with folks. A lot going on at the district level. And since we don't have as many folks on the call yet, I don't want to run through quite everything. And I want to really honor and respect people's time. So I might actually start off with questions, but I'll touch on some things real quick. Obviously, we're going through the refined scenarios portion of facilities master planning, and we have meetings going on right now with potentially impacted school communities. Appreciate all the staff who are going out. I talked to someone this week who attended the meeting at Finch, and she really appreciated the way the meeting was done. And some really good feedback coming from folks in the Carver community. Of course, I have Carver. And I'm excited to hear from folks who are in or next to the Washington cluster and excited about the development of Washington. So I will run through the states later when I see some more folks on the call who I know would be impacted by those. We also had a really important and transparent and productive budget commission meeting this week. I think everyone on the call is very aware of where APS is right now. With our budget, we have had a deficit that Dr. Johnson and the team have worked hard to address and close. It did require us going somewhat into fund balance. And we need to get away from that, much less than last year, but still, we need to build up our fund balance, especially now considering where things are in the outside and immediate world. And then the deficit will be growing. And a large part of that is because we are a system that's structurally spread too thin. There are a lot of places we need to do much better in being effective and efficient. And there's a lot of work being done to make us more efficient in terms of just our sustainability and looking at contracts and duplicative services. But certainly, our structure does not provide us a way to best leverage what we have in our resources, which are not unlimited, to serve our students even better. And we've got to do that. And we are doing that work right now, facilities master planning. So appreciate everyone who is engaging in that process. Please continue to. I have been going to lots of meetings and talking directly with folks to hear feedback on the refined scenarios, especially at this point. I think everyone on this call knows for the Jackson cluster, the proposal right now is to move Dunbar into BAMO. So even though Dunbar is not a school in my district, I am certainly making sure I hear feedback from that community, which feeds into King and Jackson, and making sure that is incorporated into what is being developed. I have definitely been listening to BAMO. I have gone to neighborhood meetings. I've gone to meetings at the school. I've talked directly with families and appreciate all the feedback. Also, The scenarios include potentially building on to Jackson. There's definitely, opportunity there, but making sure we prioritize Carver and Washington's conversation, being that those schools have not had some significant East Blast, and then just like the programmatic development and support. And I am very excited about the School of the Arts and what that could be, and a full early college school at Carver, and just receiving feedback from folks on that, which has been tremendous. And then also, obviously, how people feel, even though they're not in my district, but they've been feeding into Carver, and just hearing their feedback around potentially moving into the Washington cluster or South Atlanta. So now that more people are on the call, I will make sure I highlight the meetings coming up that affect schools, communities within the Carver cluster right now. So the one for Carver as a whole will be held at Sylvan Hills on the 7th next week. I will definitely be there. There will also be a meeting at Perkison regarding Perkison. Finch and Perkison, their proposals there, actually Finch, not as much as just moving the school, but Perkison impacted in that community has been very vocal, as well as Finch, and really encourage them to continue to share their feedback as families who have students in those schools. Their meeting will be October 8th. I will be there as well. And that same night, there is a meeting at Dunbar. As you all know, if you don't know, these meetings are being held kind of simultaneously because there's so many that need to be done before fall break. And again, appreciate all the hardworking APS staff who are out there leading these meetings, and being so intentional in getting that feedback and meeting families and communities where they are. I'll also be at the King PTSA meeting on the 21st of October. They've asked me to give another update on facilities master planning, so there for it. King is getting out there in the numbers and making sure folks have all the information. Obviously, we need to, and I won't say obviously, but it's been talked about a lot, we need to adjust our footprint in terms of our facilities. We have a lot of unused, underutilized space. We also have deferred maintenance that's extreme cost. We need to use that money and those resources to push back to students and programs and building those out, especially for schools like Carver and Washington. So, but after we get through this round, really looking at future rezoning and adjusting lines, which absolutely applies to the Jackson cluster, and addressing some of the imbalance so we can even further leverage our resources within our schools for our students. We also have, I'll just make a plug for the Jackson Jaguar Jog that is coming up, and that is for all communities to participate. It is November 15th. We'd love to have everyone join. It benefits not only the cross country program at Jackson, but all the athletic programs at Jackson with the Booster Club. I also want to make a plug for our new newsletter at Jackson, which Midtown's had a great one that really gets out great information. This one is through the Arts Booster, but it gives a rundown of everything going on at Jackson High School. So if you look up Maynard Jackson Art Booster, you can find out about the newsletter. Questions about that, let me know. The district has a Hispanic College and Career event at the Hub that is, I think, tomorrow, which is awesome. Really want to make sure we are meeting our families with the resources they need and supports they need, certainly during this time. Breakfast with the Board is coming up. One of my favorite things to do is engage directly with students, and I'm thrilled that we've added Phoenix. Thank you, folks, for your hard work to make that happen, to make sure we're hearing from those students as well. Superintendent hours, I hear he's got a lot of folks tuning in, a lot of high schoolers and middle schoolers tuning in to share their feedback with the superintendent. So tell your student, tell other students to please make sure to look out for these opportunities. Dr. Johnson wants to hear from them. And I want to put a plug out, of course, for our graduation rate being 90.5. That's a huge thing to celebrate. And graduation, increasing in graduation is extremely important. Just as important, if not even more, is making sure our students have the skills they need to enter college and or career, be enlisted in the military or whatever path they choose, but to really have a plan. And that, to me, definitely connects back to our facilities master planning as we look to really strengthen of programmatic options for students across the district. I have asked Keith and team to drop in the chat, please, a link to our presentation from the Budget Commission meeting this week. It is a lot of information, but it is the information you need to have about where we are as a district. Thank you, Mahogany. I encourage folks to look at that. If you have questions about the impact of TADS, where we are structurally, like our ratios, teacher to student ratios across the district, how much we're spending per pupil, it is in this presentation. It really gives a full view of what our overview is of all schools and our spend. It also gives a great overview of slide 18. If someone could drop that real quick and just share it. The buckets of how we're spending, percentage we're increasing, and it shows things that we know are going to increase over time, like benefits. Thank you. My favorite slide. Ken, if you haven't seen this yet, we called this out a lot during the Budget Commission meeting, but this is just a real overview of where we are. So I encourage folks to take this in, to share it with others, to pay attention. We are going into the planning. Yes, we're starting for the 2027 budget, and we're looking at a basically $55 million gap. That is real, folks, and that's not going away without a lot of intentional work. And especially right now, we know that a lot of resources they just won't be there when it comes to federal support and how that impacts potentially partners that we work with. We have got to really protect our resources and make sure our students are best served, and being able to leverage partnerships, because we know our students are going to need more support during this time, and unfortunately probably going forward for a while. So thank you for sharing that. Then I want to because we don't have a whole bunch of people on the call, and I don't want to keep everyone for an hour just to keep you. I want to hear questions from folks now, and then we can just play it by ear how we go from here. Again, thank y'all for taking time on a Friday to join me. Any questions, Keith, from folks?
Yeah, thank you, Board Member Howard, and good morning, everyone. Again, as Board Member Howard just mentioned, if you do want to engage with us, as we do for all of our meetings, we ask you raise your hand. We'll put you into the queue, and we'll take your questions as we see them appear.
Hi, Lisa. Thanks for joining.
Hi.
Good morning.
So I actually have a couple of questions. I guess two are comments. One is I haven't been able to attend the individual community meetings regarding the facilities. But one thing that I've noticed, and I think I've said it before, is that there's one thing that's presented on the slides, and then there's a lot of other things that are presented in discussion. And that creates a lot of confusion in the community, because it's, you can say, well, they've mentioned this. And so it's really hard to have, for people who can't be there, you can say, well, here's the slide and here's what it says. But then there's, the consultants will go off and talk about, but that's not the end of the discussion. Here's the other things we're talking about. And that's fine, but I think that it would be really helpful for the community if these other things that the consultants are saying are under discussion are put somewhere in writing. And then also because these are big discussions, if there is a way to just kind of summarize what's happening at these concurrent meetings, just because it would give all of us a better sense of, and I realize that's probably unrealistic, but it just gives us a better sense of what's happening, because I felt like I attended a lot of those meetings and I was really interested in hearing the answers to the questions from the individually impacted community members. But all of them were like, well, we're going to dig into that in a different meeting. But now those meetings are spread out all over the city, which is great. I mean, it needs to be in their communities understanding, but it just creates this gap in knowledge, that it just, it just seems like there's a lot of information being presented in a way that is hard to access. So I just wanted to put that out there. But my two actual questions, and I didn't watch the budget committee meeting yet, but did you discuss the announcement, or I guess the plan that APS put in there, not APS, City of Atlanta put in a newsletter about $5 billion in TADs that they're planning for the reinvesting in neighborhood initiative? I saw it in the mayor's newsletter that came out earlier this week. Is that something that the budget commission spoke about, or are you aware of?
Yeah, so I'm gonna start with your first one real quick.
Okay.
And great questions, and I'm glad you brought both areas up. So going back to the individual refined scenario meetings in communities that are potentially impacted or proposed to be impacted. I hear you on people wanting to know more, and I always appreciate you wanting to really understand like what's going on across the system so you can best support in the role that you are in. I do think what's so helpful right now is people who probably haven't necessarily been heard yet are being heard in terms of their feedback on like getting more into the details of what works best for their community and their school and just the planning around this. So I think some of that is going to be developing. But yes, there are some things that do need to be put into writing for sure and more formalized. And that is coming. Like for instance, I'm talking with folks who are giving me feedback that I certainly share with the superintendent directly, because these meetings are actually being led by APS staff. They're not being led by the consultants. So it's really the opportunity for folks to just dig deeper in and just have that time carved out for them, which looks different, as you're pointing out, than the meetings have been held across clusters with a higher view. But there is a task force meeting on October 9th, where I expect the feedback from these meetings to be kind of cumulated. At that point, like people will have that information in writing then for the task force to give feedback. And then I assume from there, something will be sent out more to the larger community. But I appreciate what you're sharing, and I'll certainly share that back to the superintendent as well. As far as the mayor's announcement and plan for his reinvestment, I've certainly been paying attention, as my colleagues are. I know Ken certainly has. And for those who don't know, I mean, they're proposing extension of TADs. And all of them kind of have different end dates. The Beltline TAD will be paid off in 2030, and that's obviously it is the largest generating one. My position is focusing on the needs of our students and the current situation for our district. And I've certainly communicated that actually directly to the mayor. I think that the plan talked about things that absolutely need to be invested in. Right now, my job as a board member is to make sure our resources are going to our students, especially at a time where, we have this growing gap, and we are doing the work we have to do. I make very clear that we have to first look at our financial health and what we're doing. We do have a solid property tax base, and we need to best utilize that money and be able to take advantage of funds that should be available to us when things like TADs end. That was the point of us giving up that money during this time, is to have more when they're done. And our students deserve that for things that we have got to talk about that we're doing and committing to and proving that we can do well, like early learning, and making sure our students are really prepared when they leave high school. So, there's a lot of conversation being had. Clearly, the mayor is going to put forth what, he wants to invest in, and we're talking about what we've got to invest in. So we did not specifically talk about that during Budget Commission. To directly answer your question, that press conference actually happened after that meeting. Okay. But everyone needs to pay attention and ask questions of their elected representatives and hold them accountable. But yeah, I'm really excited about the opportunities we have right now at the district, and doing this really hard work, but to really shift to make sure we're best supporting our students and, using the resources we have extremely wisely, which are the taxpayers' dollars. Does that help at all? questions?
Yes, I guess I was, there with the focus on budget and the need and the discussion and the board about the property, the individual property owners versus commercial. It just seemed like the announcement of the TADs, I understand the need, but at the same time, if that is going to continue to reduce funding available to APS, I think we as parents, if there's something that if we can understand better the impact, because I'm not sure broadly people do, it would help us kind of advocate for,
Mhm.
or at least be better aware of how this impacts students and funding. So
Yeah, I know Kim wants to chime in
yeah.
too. I'm definitely going to let him for sure. I will say we've contributed a lot to the Beltline, to TADS in general. And, when they're supposed to end, they're supposed to end. And everyone needs to pay attention. And there's a City of Atlanta portion too, of course. It requires commitment from APS. Well, people have to, the entities have to opt in. I mean, they don't all have to, but it's Fulton County, the city, and APS. So yes, by all means. Now, I go back to our own financial house real quickly because it's 2030. So I don't want people to think that, let's say APS is like, everybody's like, we're not extending the TAD period for Beltline. That's still not going to address our problems right now. That is obviously looking towards the future. And the undervaluation of commercial property is another issue that absolutely Fulton County needs to be dealing with and should have been dealing with. That is not new. So I want to make sure people do understand they're separate. They all obviously impact one another, but just putting that out there. Ken, please.
Yeah, I think you said it right. Can you hear me okay? Am I coming through on the microphone? Okay. I think you said it right, Katie, and Lisa, it's the right question. I mean, I think we can all agree with some of the goals that the mayor has laid out. The question is the funding source. One thing that was revealed yesterday, I did look at the budget commission. It's a page turner. I mean, once you pick it up, you can't put it down. $86 million a year is abated through by APS for the TADs, the current set of TADs. So as Katie started with the $55 million budget, you start to see like, wow, that's money that we really need. And so, if you start to unpack a little bit of what the proposals were, I think it's about a third green space, a third transit, and maybe a third affordable housing. I mean, again, these are laudable goals. The question is APS the right funding source? And so I think there's going to be a lot of discussions about this over the coming months, but we are certainly we're going to be certainly engaged because this is something that binds us for the next 25 years. And so, we can be for development. We love the Atlantic Station. That's a great example of where I think the TADs worked. And then it closed and we declare victory and the community is better for it. And so I think, lots more conversations there.
Thank you, Ken. Well said. I'm glad Ken pointed out the number annually. And then of course, overall, it's like $1 billion so far. And then of course, we are working with the city, with the AUDC and looking at affordable housing, like great partnerships there. Want to see more of that. APS definitely has a role to play with, especially going forward with our 47 properties that we know are not going to be used for schools. Like how are we leaning in to support the needs of our city and our residents? So that's extremely important. So yeah, talk with folks. There'll be a lot more conversation, like Ken said. I would love to answer also Alicia's question in the chat. I know, Keith, you're going through. I'll let you manage that, but if she wants to come off mute, obviously, and ask that'd be great. Because
no, I think she said she's not in a position to come.
Okay. Oh, I'm sorry. Then I'll go ahead and ask and answer it real quick, and I'll read it.
Yeah.
She said, you're right. I'm not in a position to come off mute, so dropping my question here. What is the driver behind potential $55 million funding shortfall in 2027? And what is the board looking at cutting or enhancing to stay within the budget? Great question. So obviously facilities master planning is a huge part of all of this. It is a 2-year runway. I mean, it will take time. It's not like we'll immediately have money. It'll be coming back to us, but it will help us shift, especially when it comes to planning for schools and getting more of that balance within our schools population wise, because that definitely affects us. We have had a small school supplement that so many of our schools have had to rely on, and building budgets for them outside the standard. Like all schools have this, and it works out with their numbers, like having to add and shift for these smaller schools to essentially keep them with what students deserve, but it's not obviously sustainable long term because we have this gap, and it creates potential disruption too when you're looking at making sure everyone has art, band at all levels, and we're releasing the elementary, which is why we're starting there. So the small school supplement, we're going to have to come off of that. Like we're just not, we can't afford it. And then already the superintendent has drastically shifted and cut at CLL. That has been huge. I think it's 135 positions. I know there's a net number. And some of those, yes, were unfilled, but yes, some were filled. And then just combining some positions and things of that nature. We are getting to the point they cannot cut anymore at CLL without absolutely impacting what's going on in schools. And CLL, of course, is to support the entire structure of schools. So when it's spread really thin, you have more people having to go out and support. So these are really hard conversations. This is very difficult. And we absolutely are very sensitive to the impact to school communities when we talk about facilities master planning, and also to our staff and employees in APS. So we've got to set our structure up right. But yeah, we're doing the work right now. Also, there'll be a report on Monday talking about making us, I won't even say more sustainable in terms of looking at reducing like waste and things like that, and energy. Like we haven't been as efficient as we could be. And I appreciate Dr. Johnson putting in place folks who are looking at that specifically. So there'll be a report on like reducing energy costs and food waste. Those are all very important things. I'm like, why don't we recycle as we should? And a lot of schools do it individually, but what can we do with the system to be more efficient and also a better environmental, entity? Because we have a lot of work to do in that space. So I do believe that there will, picking up every rock, shifting everything they can, but certainly keep asking and pushing to make sure you have that information. And we as a board need to continue to ask questions, the right questions, and support the work. And Jim Martin said general obligation bonds are the right funding source. Receive that. Any other
All right.
questions?
We do have another question in the chat. I would like to hear from Katie and Ken if they have any sense of where the superintendent sees ideal class sizes. Aware that between budget shortfalls, the 2030 goal of 100K salary average, and the capacity issues at some of our schools, that the solution might be to move additional students into each class so that we have fewer needed classrooms and therefore fewer classroom teachers. This would be a disaster for students' learning and teachers' retention. Has the board heard from the superintendent as to his view on low versus high class sizes?
I can start, and then Ken, please jump in. One thing the superintendent has said, we're going to need all our folks. Like there's, attrition, people retiring. Like there's no reason to think that we'll be like all of a sudden like laying off teachers. Like this is about maximizing our resources, and the most important resource for students is teachers, especially high quality. That's what we're driving towards. Hence him working towards average 100,000 for our teachers. And that is not right this moment because we don't have the money, but like working towards that. And class size and making sure we have that balance. We don't want huge classes, and we want to make sure there's flexibility within our schools, but we actually still have that opportunity with the space we have. And of course, children have different needs, and making sure those are met with the right teacher in the right space. But we have that, even with potentially bringing schools together. In some scenarios, you're still not going to have like overwhelming class sizes. Also, part of us planning going forward is constantly monitoring where we are. and shifting as we need to. That really has not been done in the past, and we've got to do that well. Ken, I'll pause there and let you jump in if you want.
I think that sounds right. I mean, I think what I want to hold us accountable to is high quality instruction, and class size is a measure to look at. But at the end of the day, some teachers can handle, if you're skilled and have quality classroom management, the size, having 1 or 2 kids on the margin isn't really make a difference. I know I was just talking to my son last night in Midtown. He's got 31 kids in a class. But the class runs great because the teacher is skilled and valued. I think that the underlying point that I really pick up on, though, is teachers need to feel valued and supported. And that I think, the way to express that we value somebody and the way to express that we value anything is you pay them. And so and that's really, back to the question before, where have we dug ourselves a little bit? Where have we gotten over our skis a little bit? It's in investing in our teachers. We've made huge investments in teachers, and it's showing. I mean, we are the highest paid at every level. We are the highest paying district in Metro Atlanta, so likely the state. We gave huge 11% raise 2 years ago, a couple percent raise this year, and it showed because we don't have long-term subs. Our vacancies have never been lower, and so that has that reliability. I think creates that positive experience for the kid, and but our teachers need to feel valued. So I hear you, and we definitely need to make sure that our teachers show up to work in a place where they're supported, and I think compensation is part of that. Professional development, supportive cultures are other parts of it, but. Yeah, we're voting with our budget on where we think is value, and that's why we spend it on teachers.
Well said, Ken. And I'll put out too, and we were talking on Tuesday, we have more veteran teachers coming to us, and they do get more pay based on years and degrees, which is excellent. I mean, that's what you want, and of course, making sure those folks are the right folks for our students too. But that is going to cost us more, so we've really got to plan for that and make sure we can sustain that. Like Ken said, we've already made this huge investment and we want to go farther with it. And it's not like once we make it's one time, that's it. It continues to grow and benefits too. So we've got to plan for that. But I'm looking forward to the right flexibility. Like Ken said, like you have like a master teacher who can handle more students in high school. What does that look like for other clusters where we're trying to really strengthen programs? We've got to be flexible in that space and provide for that. But to me, all that is opportunity for our teachers and high quality instruction. But thank you for that question. Please continue to lift it. And Dr. Johnson has been very forthcoming about making sure we're supporting our teachers during this time.
All right, we'll go back to Lisa.
I hope I'm not jumping ahead of anybody else. I did remember I had another question. I noticed this year the board retreats have not been live streamed, or at least I couldn't find a recording for them. Is there a reason that has changed? I've always found them to be incredibly enlightening because it's the opportunity when the board really does deep dives into certain topics like facilities or budget. I've learned so much from those board retreats, but I have noticed maybe the one right before school started and then one at the end of August where I couldn't find a link for them. Are they being live streamed or not?
So I'm thinking back to all the retreats we've had. There's no reason that I'm aware of for them not to be recorded. Like I literally go into them and I expect them to be recorded. Now live streamed, I don't know based on like if we move location. But that's a great question. And I will certainly take that back and make sure we respond. I don't know, Keith or anybody can provide clarification, but if it's a retreat, like we're meeting as a quorum and we're not talking about something that cannot be discussed in public, we have to definitely record and take minutes and share the information. But I'll make sure based on when we had them, what was actually designated a retreat, that we provide that information as to where you can get the recording. And live streaming, like if we're not at CLL, that might be different, but still recording the conversation. But I hear you, because yeah, we do dig in.
Hey, Katie, it's Michael. Hello. So the last board retreat that we did have was not live streamed because we were off-site, but the last retreat that we did have back in May was live stream, which was with Dr. Johnson. That is on our board YouTube page. But to your point, all meetings that happen off-site will not be recorded because we don't have the capabilities of recording off-site.
Okay. So, but for those, if it's not executive session,
Correct.
they're meeting minutes or information provided about what was discussed. And they are noticed so people can attend. Correct?
That is correct, yes.
But the one, what was the one that we had right before? What was the date on that? Not the most
Um,
recent one, but the one before that, because I just want to make sure I find the live stream online too. So,
that was in, let me pull that up. That was in May with Dr. Johnson, and I'll send you the correct date via text.
got it. August 27th. Thanks, Lisa. Not looking at my calendar. But no, great question. And yeah, we'll make sure that thank you, Ken, for joining. I know you have another meeting. I appreciate you being here. Any other questions right now?
Yep, we have one more question. What happens to the timelines for buildings that are due for renovations? Lowest on the facility scores. Once the additions and renovations needed for consolidations and closures coming as a result of the new master plan, will non-affected buildings have to wait for all these newly necessitated renovations before seeing major improvements? I hope you understood the question. So will non-affected buildings have to wait for all the new buildings and necessary renovations before seeing major improvements?
Great question. So we are about to embark, I say about, is coming for our East Blast planning. So the East Blast, the special purpose local option sales tax for education, it's about to expire. So now we'll be planning or starting to plan a new one, which obviously the timing for facilities master planning is matching up as it should. So TBD, but it will be, based on what's decided in the plan, how we go through aligning East Blast dollars with improvements that need to be made. I can't answer questions around like just if there's some deferred maintenance at a building. I think those things are ongoing and continue to happen. If it costs more, does it require money from the East Blast? I mean, that's getting into the operational weeds, but I think generally when you look at the refined scenarios, let's say you're planning a school of the arts that ends up being a decision at Carver with the early college school, does that require a build out of any sort? What amount of East Blast money would that be? Let's say we do need to add on to Jackson a bit. What does that look like? How much does that cost? And then, going from there. And I'm obviously not a facilities person, but I assume also they have a bucket where these are the things that we need to address at our schools that will be utilized. I mean, we're trying obviously to in shifting kids as we should based on their needs. You're also looking at obviously the condition of buildings. So buildings that are not as good condition, trying to shift away from that, which would obviously take that deferred maintenance need offline because you don't have students in that building. But needs that are going on right now, they should be met or being met right now. I don't know specifically what you're talking about at what school, but if you want to ask that question of facilities, I encourage you to. You can put that in Let's Talk, or you can ask me, and we can answer for you. But I think generally that's how the discussion's been about prioritizing. But that's TBD too. We need to get through the process of deciding how we are shifting and then aligning the funds with those needs. Any
All
other?
right. Any other questions? If not, Board Member Howard, it's 10:40, almost 10:40 now.
We can wrap up early. I really appreciate everyone joining who did. I know, it is a beautiful Friday. Finally feels like fall morning. So I hope people are able to get some air outside today. And yes, heart to that. And I deeply appreciate all APS folks being on. I know y'all got a lot going on. And yeah, so in closing, please, please, please continue to stay engaged in facilities master planning. I'm so glad we are, again, this is really hard work, but I'm glad we're really getting out to community and having meetings where people, I think, even feel more comfortable about sharing and getting into what they want to see right now and then what they want to see in the future with their fellow parents and or neighbors, from current families to those who are looking to send their kids to our schools. So appreciate all the staff who are doing those meetings. And I hear you, Lisa, on how that information will be communicated. And I appreciate you raising that. And then, yeah, with that, make sure to tune in on Monday and get out and enjoy some fall stuff this weekend. And then, yeah, we will have a lot going on next week in APS. And then I know everyone is probably looking forward to fall break. But we're here always, so reach out anytime. I think y'all have my information. And with that, I will close this out. Thank you all so much for such a productive and efficient meeting.
Thank you, Board Member Howard, and have a great weekend, everyone. See you
Thanks,
guys.
everyone. Take care.